This is Ask Media Group, the company behind Ask.com and several other high-traffic websites, and it's owned by a $4 billion company. Together, they pull in 245 million visitors a month, but their websites had a major problem. Their entire content infrastructure was stuck on an old CMS, which led to slow content publishing, messy ad operations, and even for small updates, the editors had to rely on the engineering team. So we fixed everything using WordPress. Within just 12 weeks, we migrated their 11 websites and 50,000 plus articles with zero downtime. And in this video, we'll show you how we migrated everything smoothly, the WordPress setup powering all 11 sites, how we streamlined their ads management system, and how we sped up the editorial workflow.
So let us first dive into the multi-site architecture. I hope you all are aware about the capability of WordPress multi-site. So it is, if I speak a little bit in a technical language, then WordPress as a single code base instance, you have this freedom to use it as a single site implementation, implement certain settings. You can convert it into multi-site instance where it gives you a facility where you can host multiple websites on one single instance, and then you have a lot of advantages of WordPress multi-site. So that is what we followed here. Ask Media, a group wanted to have all their brand centrally managed so that it becomes easy. So we utilize WordPress multi-site installations to host their brand websites, and then it has a capability to add more brands. And since we did the migration, they have added a lot of other brands as well on the same install, and it was a successful implementation. We utilized multi-site where it still gives you, it is a single code instance so that you have a shared plugins and core updates. So if you update this WordPress multi-site core instance, the WordPress upgrades will be applied to all the websites which is using this instance, and you will have a shared plugins, right? So that same advantage comes here, and that is where that is the advantage. But at the same time, it is a need, right? That every 11 brands will have their distinct layout and themes. And that is where it is the beauty of WordPress multi-site, that you can still have as many themes as you want. And each brand, each site can have a different themes activated on them. So that is the advantage utilized here. And multi-site instance allows you to have centralized user management. And then you have a user-based, role-based access management. For example, you can decide which users can have administrative right on which website, or which users has how many access to how many websites, right? So that those kind of settings can easily be done, right? So that is why we utilize multi-site, and it was a great implementation. Going further, one of the need that Ask Media Group had was centralized content management. So, and this was one of their key expectations to optimize their editorial workflow, where of course you have a different brands, but with their larger editorial team, they wanted a centralized dashboard where they can decide that, okay, this particular story goes on which brand websites, and they wanted that freedom so that it eventually, with a single dashboard, their editorial team can do the content publishing very easily. So what we did was we developed in-house custom solution for their centralized editorial workflow. We implemented a unified dashboard so that they can manage the content across their 11 websites. It comes with, we implemented certain features where different type of data elements like posts, media, or taxonomy becomes very easy to sync between the websites. And to achieve these, we utilize WordPress hooks, where we implemented some of the REST API calls where this implementation can be done. And all in all, this all was implemented with a system logs implementation where, let's say, certain actions can be approved or rejected during the sync operation. So if you look at this screenshot, I'm giving you a high level snapshot here where, let's say, you can in this solution, you can designate one website as a central website, and then you can decide that, okay, which are the brands are connected. And then whenever you are publishing the content, it is then connected, and you can easily decide that, okay, which content goes on which website or not, right? And then you can do the same thing with the single dashboard. Yeah. Within this editorial workflow, we implemented their content moderation workflow, where, let's say, for any particular content piece, editorials can decide whether there is a approval needed or not. So the approval can be optional per website, and content is synced only. So we have implemented a check where content is only synced after the admin approval. And let's say if a particular publishing request is rejected, then what happens, right? Like, then it is excluded on subsequent websites, and then you have entire workflow which will be followed, right? And that is where, because we are using most of the native elements of WordPress, you get this advantage of like content comparison, where you can do this revision comparison which for each content piece, and then you have like a better decision making, or like, okay, what are the changes you want to make. And it allows you to make a site specific control very easily, right? So this is how they had a like very unique requirement to implement a very customized moderation. If we talk about theme architecture, so remember I talked about that each brand has their different UI and different theme. So like I said, it is one of the beauty of multi-site, where you can have as many themes installed on, and you can have individual brand working on individual theme, or even you can have like multiple brands using one common theme. So there is like as many combinations you can, right? So what we did was, because of their unique branding and identity requirement, we designed site specific themes which will be implemented, and we had a like common Gutenberg blocks. So that is also another important thing to consider here, that we utilized Gutenberg block editor, where based on their content requirement, we designed their Gutenberg blocks, and certain blocks can be like brand specific, and certain blocks are pretty much generalized, which can be utilized across all their websites for consistency, right? And again, like I said, because we have utilized individual theme, there are certain customizations which are brand specific that can be done very easily. We utilized reusable Gutenberg blocks, and this comes in the picture where you can have like a optimized editorial workflow, right? Like there are certain patterns which are already designed, which can be used by the editorial team. And again, block editor is really helpful for your enhanced editorial experience, and that is where Gutenberg comes very handy. Like, you can have like Gutenberg comes up with a basic library of blocks which can already be achieved your like general uh, publishing on new stories and all. But then if there are any custom blocks that can be developed by your engineering team, that is what we did here. Let's talk about data migration. So as we said that Ask Media Group was already using these legacy CMS for many more years, right? So when they wanted to migrate to WordPress, that was like we had to bring over all those content, articles, and posts to WordPress, right? And that is where this is one of the most important thing that you do is data analysis, database analysis. Like this was a very important phase of data migration strategy that you do, like asking a lot of questions, where what kind of export mechanism is available from current content CMS, right? Like, are you getting a database dump, or is there any API endpoints, or like what is the format? Like, is it JSON, XML, or how you are getting the data from CMS, and then do the data mapping along towards WordPress, like which data will go, where will you put the taxonomies, where the content article or metadata goes, right? Like, and images and all. So that happens where data mapping can happen at a very detailed, granular level. And then you follow the migration approach. And what we did for Ask Media was, after doing analysis and mapping, we g- we went with WordPress CLI. WP CLI is a command line interface that you can interact with WordPress, and you can actually develop your customized scripts, and then you can perform bulk operations. So WordPress WPC like came very handy for our like large scale data migration. Then we utilized certain WordPress import tools available in out of the box WordPress, and even plugins as well, which was like very rare. But we highly were dependent on WP CLI for our data migration strategy. And then, yeah, given the large size of data, right, like you have to anticipate, like, okay, what is how much time it will take. Let's say if you are talking about, what is the content piece you are talking about? Are you talking about 100 posts, thousands posts, or hundreds of thousands of posts, right? So you measure the size, and then you predict the timeline, like how much time will it take for you to execute the scripts, and then design accordingly. Like like I said, like with Ask Media Group, we had this challenge of like zero downtime or minimal downtime. So what we did was, we did like multiple snapshot migration here, where you have, like, let's say you have first migration, then second migration, and then you switch over the DNS, right? Again, when you are doing this all mapping, you know thinking about the URL structure and redirect is also very important, like, because you don't want to have any like impact on your search engine ranking. So studying the URL architecture, and thinking about, okay, what are the redirects you have to maintain, that is very important. And then eventually content validation, like you have to think about, like, okay, once the migration is done, how will you validate that, okay, enough content has been migrated, all the content is migrated, or are there any errors or something? So you do the content validation. uh, so like I said, what we did was, we highly relied on WordPress CLI scripts for data migration for Ask Media Group. We leveraged highly on WordPress VIP platform, and WordPress VIP has a VIP CLI available for large scale WP CLI scripts, right? So we highly, and that is where WordPress VIP, came as like a very good implementation platform, which makes it pretty easy for such large scale migration. We followed a systematic migration order, where first, you know remember I talked about data mapping. So you first have migrate all the users, then you migrate media, then you migrate articles, and then you do the mapping. So then it becomes pretty easy, where you can have those relationships going on, right? Like, where who is the author of particular article, what are these redirects? Because when you migrate over to WordPress, you will have different primary keys, different IDs, right? So to maintain that relationship between all these content piece, yeah, following this migration order was like a life saving, like it was really helpful uh, to maintain all those relationships. uh, Again, this is also like content transformation. So as I told you, like, for moving to this WordPress, we decided that we will go with Gutenberg block editor versus on the legacy CMS, all the content piece are in plain HTML, right? Like plain HTML. So this is also like a very important uh, aspect where how will you implement these content transformations. So again, we utilized WP CLI, and we decided that okay, which content element represent connect with which block, and then you have that content transformation scripts also running once the data migration is done, and then eventually everything is like Gutenberg compatible. um, like uh, like I told you, like with this size of uh, content, large size of content, you do it cannot be done in one shot, right? Because you have one WordPress, one content dump, and then while you are migrating them over to WordPress, let's say they have more content piece already published, because remember the websites are already live, right? So that is why we did multiple migration rounds to minimize the downtime and to minimize the content freeze, right? So at some point we had to ask the editorial team to have a content freeze, but it was like very minimal, like for like couple of hours, and then they are ready to publish on this new platform, WordPress. We migrated over like 50K post and associated media for us media group when we did this migration. Yeah. But yeah, data migration, what the steps of defining your strategy and its execution is very critical part when you are thinking about such a large scale um, migration project. Uh, so here is a quick snapshot how we did. Like we had, remember I talked about the database dump. Then you have a, let's say, you study that okay, in which type we will be getting the database. Let's say in this case we got their individual web site dump as their files. Then we utilized our migration script and plugin where it goes on individual websites, and it goes on the central site as well to achieve the editorial workflow that we have implemented. Yeah. Let us talk about advertisement management. So yeah, being these their one of the revenue driver, like this was their expectation where they wanted like a simplified advertisement management, where we implemented a custom solution for them which allows them like as per their unique requirement, like slot based advertisement management on different templates or different pages of the website, and they have a full freedom on each brand, where like on which brand where the advertisement slot goes, right? Like, and it is pretty flexible, so admins are allowed to customize and choose each slot. And these advertisement configurations can be device specific, right? For example, on mobile or on desktop, they wanted a different advertisement visibility. So yeah, we implemented a custom solution which streamlined their advertisement in operations with enhancing their flexibility and control over the management. Here is a quick snapshot, like where you can see, okay, what are their placement, whether this placement is enabled or not, and they can choose like, okay, which type of advertisement they want a particular slot, right? Like, so it was highly customizable as per their need. Um, let us talk about performance optimization. So considering, yeah, we are utilizing WordPress VIP platform here. So WordPress VIP comes with like highly customizable object caching. So we utilized object caching for their complex queries, right? So where you have like complex queries to bring in the content. So we did object level caching where, let's say, if a particular story is changing, we can easily clear the cache, and we can regenerate it. So implementing the implementing the new change becomes very easy. We utilized transient API. We leveraged WordPress transient API to store data in WordPress VIP Memcache cluster for faster access. We also utilized a WordPress VIP content delivery network CDN for robust page caching and media delivery. And it really helped to first implement at a code level this optimization, but at the same time, uh, it really served the purpose which they were looking for, like with a lower latency and uh, performance. Right, we implemented on the fly resizing. So this was a very interesting feature where based on the replacement of media, like where, okay, for example, on a grid layout you want certain size of thumbnails, then you pass on those arguments. And if you want certain type of sizes on other screens, that can be easily done, right? So yeah, implementing this performance was really helpful that we did on this project. Yeah, so that is those were some of the high level topics that different aspects that we covered during this migration. And if we look at results and impact, uh, like I said, it was a seamless migration where we were able to implement a solution where all their brands are migrated to WordPress with within like very short deadline, right? Like they had a critical deadline where they wanted to move to WordPress. So we implemented within like 12 weeks of time with zero downtime. We implemented their centralized content management, which is a future proof system for scalability. So, and as of today, like I'm not sure about the exact number, but they have like many brands, like more than like 30-40 brands on which they are using on this platform. And it is feature proof. So let's say if they wanted to go with a headless implementation at some point, or if want to add more brands, or if want to detach a particular brand, that becomes pretty easy with these solutions, the way we have implemented this solution, which is like future ready, um, in whatever way they want to customize it. We were able to optimize their workflow, which reduced publishing time with the block editor. So, like I said, that for the standard layout, the general blocks comes pretty handy. But if you have any new requirements, one, they have a very good library of Gutenberg blocks which they can utilize. At the same time, if you want to introduce new blocks, that will be always easy. They were able to achieve improvised user engagement. The new implementation enhanced their user interaction with modern design. They were able to implement new design easily. Like I talked about the theme approach, where they are able to very easily implement new new themes they want to, like let's say if they decide to add a new layout, that becomes pretty easy. They observed 45% performance boost on different brands of the website they are using. And like I said, scalable architecture for their long-term growth, right? Like so with WordPress's full flexibility where they can enjoy all the availability, flexibility of WordPress as a platform. Uh, Let us talk about key takeaways. Let's say as we are doing this publisher week, we will have a different audience. Like so, let's say let me coin out a couple of key takeaways for larger publishers. Let's say large scale publishers. If you are an engineer, or if you are a team, or if you are a large scale publisher on your own, some of the takeaways that I can think of is, yeah, WordPress can effectively handle large scale high traffic websites, right? So sometime um, let's say sometime when, and it is very obvious, right? Like when you are deciding such a big move for your publishing business, you will have all these questions like whether this particular platform will be able to handle, let's say, millions of traffics, or this kind of like large scale content management, or is it like future ready? You will have all this kind of question. And that is where, I think, this case study shows that WordPress can effectively handle large scale migrations and high traffic websites. Uh, in this example, we have observed that WordPress command line WP CLI is highly efficient for large scale migration operations, right? And as we just saw in this example, where we have more than like 50,000 plus content PCs, or even more than that, right? Like, where if you have a systematic strategy design, and if you have engineering team capable to design your WP CLI scripts, it becomes very efficient to migrate all over to WordPress, and with the content validation that you need, right? Like, you want to be sure that, okay, all this content, like no content is left, or I have like minimal downtime, minimal 404s, or minimal impact on my search engine ranking. So that is where WPC we can rely on WPCLI. Centralized content management has improved their operational efficiency. Again, this is like, I would say, this particular piece of a feature is very like publisher specific. If we have this kind of need, then that is my observation, that this kind of a custom workflow can really improvise your operational efficiency. Advanced caching and CDN strategies will enhance the performance. And that is what we have seen in our example, where implementing this caching mechanism, like again, like where we have implemented certain customizations for their need, but it it helps them a lot, right? Like, for example, sometimes you have a challenges where you publish a story, but then you don't have uh, you are struggling with having it affected on your homepage. Like, you refresh a lot of time, or it takes like 10 minutes, 20 minutes to reflect on the homepage. But having your customized caching strategy, you can have like those changes reflected immediately, and it can improvise the performance. Modular Gutenberg blocks and patterns ensures flexibility and consistency. And that is what we have seen here, that one, you have a library of a lot of blocks available, but at the same time, you can design based on your need. That way, your editorial team, you can reduce, first you can improve their efficiency. At the same time, you can reduce user error, or like lengthy management, which can affect their productivity. Iterative testing minimizes risk and ensures accuracy. So yeah, if you implement, you know, let's say what we seen on data validation during the migration, right? Like, if you have a repetitive testing mechanisms implemented, that helps and ensures that, okay, everything is working pretty well. Let us talk about key takeaways for small, medium publishers or project size, right? Um, of course, all these learnings which we discussed, if you consider all those, you know it can be helpful for your migration or for your project. But at the same time, for, let's say, for audience here, if you are talking about that, okay, we have like small medium projects or migrations, what are the takeaways I can think of here, right? One, as you have seen, like, using WordPress multi-site can improve the efficiency. So if you are someone where you have multiple brands or multiple websites, but then, if you want to avoid headache of, like, let's say, upgrading WordPress on a multiple instance, or having upgrading plugins on like 10 of different websites, if you are someone who are running a publishing business, have your brands which is you are owning, then going with multi-site can really be helpful and time saving and very efficient. Another takeaway that I can think of is taking the advantage of Gutenberg block editor, where, it is very important, if you educate your editorial team and engineering team to develop this capability working with Gutenberg block, then, Gutenberg block editor is a amazing WYSIWYG editor, and it gives a full flexibility on the way you want to design your content and articles. So that is where I would highly recommend on looking at Gutenberg if you have not yet. uh, Focus on implementing performance best practices from the beginning, right? So as we have seen, like in this world of like faster, everybody needs a faster website, right? And that is where, while designing your website, while designing your, let's say, uh, pages or articles, if you think, if you keep these practices in your mind, like where you have optimized, let's say you are utilizing CD and you are utilizing best caching mechanisms, and your pages are optimized, then it will serve best on mobile, and it will best serve to search engines as well, which eventually will result in higher rankings and more like results on SEO, right? And last, I would like to highlight is sometime it is good to implement custom solutions for your unique needs, right? So uh, yeah, WordPress comes with a, like, one of the best advantage of WordPress is it has a vast library of custom add-ons, plugins available, where you can utilize them, right? But at the same time, um, this is what our observation I have seen, that let's say many times you have a custom needs which is like very specific to your business which you are running, like you have a like very unique editorial workflow, you have like very unique requirement. In as media group we have seen about centralized content management or advertisement management, right? Like many times pinpointing out those kind of requirements and going with a custom solution can save you a long way, right? So that is also I would like to share as a key takeaway on this migration. Yeah. So I hope these takeaways were helpful, and yeah, that was the high level migrations journey that I wanted to share with Has Media Group. I hope this was helpful. And before we move on questions, I would like to share sincere thanks to our engineering team who worked on this project. And special thanks to Hardik Thakkar and Mayur Keshwani, who helped me with preparing this, who helped me brainstorm all these key takeaways and ideas for this case study workshop. Yeah, I hope this was really helpful.